And we were so fortunate to have them all open access journals, and there is no fees for you to publish in any of our journals or the book project that we have been doing. If you want to make a open access book, that's the only area there is a small fee. Still, Star Scholars, offers about $4,000 for every single book project selected by the board. And if needed, a small fee might be asked to you or to your institutions. However, individual author of the articles, book chapters are not, required to pay even a penny for any of our project under Star Scholars banner. So I stop here and look forward to taking questions. I know Professor Deepak has been collecting many questions in the last 15 minutes or so. So thank you very much. Um, Over to you, Deepak, sir.
Uh, thank you, Dr. Vista. Uh, this is this was an insightful, broad brush, like deep dive into this field, especially if someone is new to publication, starting the journey. You towards the end, you mentioned something about being a reviewer for a journal, and you also stated what are the benefits of it. So if someone is new, I'm asking this from the perspective that in especially in Indian universities, or in general in say this part of the world, there are many students who do not get a lot of support from their faculties, their departments, in terms of publication, or the culture itself is not there. Although the student is enthusiastic, but the faculty members may not be so enthusiastic about all this. So how does one start with this journey of being a reviewer? How do you actually become a reviewer for a journal? That so if you can share on that.
Yes, there are several ways of engaging, involving in the journals. Even I didn't know until recently. Recently means about 5 or 7 years ago. Um, and the one way to do this is to reach out. Just email any editor of the journals, asking them, okay, I'm interested. These are my area of interest. I have taken, research courses here at the university, and here is my resume CV. That is the one way, because many editors definitely are looking for editors. I can promise all attendees who are listening this morning on social medias or here in the Zoom room, just let me know. I am very, very happy to enroll all of you to in our 8 journals that we have in our Star Scholars banner. You definitely deserve the opportunity to serve as a reviewers. And also, if the journals that I have, as I said earlier, we have only education major journals. That's our field. In case if you are interested in other field, let me know. I'm happy to connect you with the other editors. The first thing first, you look around the journals that you are interested, look into their aims and scope, and then simply send one email to the editor of that particular journals. You can copy me, in the email. You can, copy the outgoing email, so I know where you are sending. I can chime in. I can say, hey, this is my student from, uh, JGU or any other universities. I'm very happy to connect you. Remember, I was just on your shoes as a graduate student not long time ago. I was looking those platform. Now I know where to go and how to connect. So please, take advantage of the opportunities. We have potential. We have resources around us.
So thanks for the offer. I think this will be. Uh, we lost your voice.
Sure. And second part of your questions about the funding. You were asking, many professors or the students do not have enough funding. Yes, funding is a global issue. Even the American universities here do not have enough funding for the faculty members to write and publish. The one question you ask is, you know in our social sciences, without funding we can write articles. um, what I strongly believe is the collaboration. If you are interested to run a study, if you need somebody who is already in the field, why don't you ask? Why don't you offer, simply via email or via virtual connections? You tell him or her that you are interested in data collection, you are interested in, writing some part of the articles, and then offer other person to write or be a one of the author of the work. They love being a joint author, and they do have several doctoral students. They are happy to collaborate with you. They are also busy professional. They have a need to publish. They cannot publish themselves, they cannot write themselves. It's again long document, it needs a lot of hands. That's how over the pandemics that all my 10 books came in last, I would say, about 24 months. And majority of the work were written or co-written with other colleagues. About 300 people were together in those book projects. So always reach out to them. Let's not tie with the money. Money is something, but it's not everything. And again, the pressure, if you don't have a pressure, if you don't have a need, then probably you may not realize, why am I writing if it doesn't count for my tenure, if it doesn't count for any of my work, you know and probably that's also the area that our administrators, including vice chancellor or dean or provost, need to realize. Probably the best example here is Dr. Mukherjee. Imagine how busy she is. Sometimes I happen to think that she doesn't have a time for the breakfast or lunch. But if you look at her signature line, she has published 5 to 7 or even more articles every year. That's quite a lot of work. So collaboration, teamwork is probably the best thing. If you offer Dr. Mukherjee to write some section of the articles, the forthcoming articles, you would be very happy. Ask me, Dr. Gali, Dr. Glass, or any of the star team, or the people that we have in a star network. We are very happy to connect and collaborate with you.
Sure. Thanks for that insightful information, tips, and all the support that you have offered to all the participants. It means a lot, especially when you're beginning your journey, to know all about all this. Now, one thing that's coming to my mind specifically when you're talking about collaboration. So one of the issues that I have seen, especially in Indian universities, there is a lot of contention about that. Is how do you define the author sequence in a journal article or a book
Mm-hmm.
chapter? So is there a way to determine that who should be the first author, who should be the second author, etc.? Because sometimes your it's also a question of power differential. So your faculty members, especially if it
Mm-hmm.
is your PhD guide, they may ask you to write their name as an author, even as a first author, even though they have not done any work. But again, in general, what is the process that is followed to determine the sequence?
Yes, that's a very important area to consider in our publication manual. APA, MLA, or Chicago have listed the precise guidelines. The one rule of the thumb always to determine the who is the first, second, third author. The authorship determines who start the project first, whose idea is it, and then the second is the time and contribution. How much time you spend on the project, that determines where your position should be. If I'm starting the idea as a first author and spending maybe 25% or 30% of time, then divide the time. It's also the mutual understanding. If you are working outside your university with the person you have never worked before,
Hmm.
I think before you start the project, make a written agreement that these are the author shift sequence, and this would be the role and responsibility of each author. It's not about the hierarchy. It's not about the seniority. I know in global South, oftentimes, oh, he's my mentor or she's my mentor, should be the first author. Let's not do that way. You know, for me, it's an intellectual property, is a equal work and contribution. sometimes, yes, seniority will help, to as long as you tag a senior person as a last author or somewhere else, that's fine. Or you can put those people in the acknowledgement, or you can ask these people to write the forward or preface, in your book. That's the, you give the honor, the respect for any person that you feel, important. However, it should go with the weight, the amount of contributions, and there is a justification. There is a one page, particularly on APA manual. You take a look about how it should be and how all of you should be on the same page regarding the sequence of the author. um, I see the couple of questions here in the chat as well. If that's okay, Professor Deepak, I will take
Yeah,
this.
sure. So
The
let me.
question is,
Hmm.
how many reviews are required for any kind of research work before it is publishing? For the both journals and book chapters in all of our star scholar projects, all journals and the book project, we assign every single manuscript to the three reviewers, and then we put one emerging scholar. It could be doctoral student or assistant professor, and then two senior, or familiar reviewers who have gone through the trainings. Actually, we do have a training for all the students, for those new, reviewers who want to join our editorial review board. They go through a sort of 45 minutes training, as a guidelines, and it does have some lessons. And if they pass the training, they can take multiple times, as long as they get 90 plus score on the test. We enroll them in our roster of reviewers. So all reviewers are acknowledged in our journals, and also their reviewers name are also printed in our book. So if you look into the before the first chapter or the table of contents, all reviewers and their affiliations are printed in our all the books published by Star Scholar in collaboration with the Routledge, Taylor and Francis, and any other publishing house. But
Great.
that's a good question.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's a good question. I think also uh, sometimes like how many reviews are required. I think that varies, but peer reviews, I think at least two will be there in any reasonable peer reviewed journal or book. At least two.
Right. Right. Sometime, it's also the individual decision of the editor assigned for that manuscript. If there is a one high quality, robust, the feedback from our reviewers, that is
Mhm.
also good. And remember, the editor who makes the decision also will be reading the manuscript. And the editor is the main gatekeepers. And
Yes.
the editor is likely to know the work structure, message, and the impact of the article after published. So always two are there no matter what.
Yeah. In fact, I was thinking about my own journey, the thing that you said about reviewer training. I think that will be a valuable thing that the students can undergo, because peer review formally, I haven't seen many universities doing anything. Publication workshops definitely do happen, but how do you do a rigorous peer review? Sometimes uh, I don't think, at least in India, that's very common. So probably those workshops, if the students can ask their faculty members to organize, that would be a good entry into the field. You can be a rigorous reviewer, and obviously, if you provide good reviews, that goes on to cement your position in the domain as a reviewer. Okay, so there's another question here. Can you mention what are the top journals in the field of internationalization of higher education?
Sure. Um, I think I would go this way. Any high-ranking journals, such as the Journal of Higher Education, a Review of Higher Education, and educational researchers. These are the top journal in our field. They are a broad one. If you are only focusing on international higher education, only international component, then I would go so far as that I have, on my in my analysis, the Journal of Studies in International Education, the one I mentioned earlier, started by Hans de Wit. That's the probably the still high ranking journal. And there is another journal published from UK. It's called Compare. Compare itself is the name of the journal. That's another high ranking journal in the field. So you can go any other journals that you feel okay. Just look into, just Google search or search within the website how many articles have been published in that very, you know, topic. If they have published many, look into the different way. Um, there are many, I would say at least a dozen of journal in education are really, really good, best. But again, it depends how do you say best, right? It's sometimes challenging. And again, we have a traditional metrics to evaluate. They evaluate based on the impact factor. They evaluate based on the number of years they have been in the field, and also the process is itself. And many journals, you may not believe, may take around a year and a half or almost 2 years in the publication process. Very recently, they started a new features called online first, because they have
Okay.
now the more sophisticated latest technology that helps editors publish the online edition first, and they call online first. And many journals in the field, they started publishing ahead of their regular scheduled time before the print edition. So decide yourself, based on the article published around. But I do have a list, about 5 journals. I like to stick with those one bucket, and then second bucket, the other journals that I feel, not the top quality, but the quality in quality of the articles, they published, and I believe in those. So I like to give them chance, give them, be the part of the process, and support them the growth in the field.
So just a related question now. The sentence that you used or the phrase you used, I want to give them the chance.
Hmm.
So, from a student's perspective, that is actually the opposite. Here, you are in a position, you are a highly published, highly cited author and successful in the field, and you are giving journals a chance. From students' perspective, they are trying to seek a chance, right? And when we are talking about prestige of a journal, it is definitely important if you publish for a good journal which has a reputation and a high impact factor. But if you are in, say, first or second year of your PhD, or you are just starting on your MPhil journey or whatever journey, research journey, basically, you're trying to get into the domain. And what do you have in your hand? Realistically, what you have is basically, for most students, it is the term papers, right? So
Hmm.
you do a course, at the end you try to do a good job of writing a term paper, and then try to convert that term paper into a journal article somewhere or a conference presentation. So is it okay to start with a low impact factor journal
Of
in
course, of course. I tried that. I tried, from the simple one, but without knowing the impact factor. I did not know until I published 4 or 5 articles that I was actually publishing the really top tier journals back then. Um, and yes, as you mentioned, the students start with their the class project, the course assignment, and that's the best thing. They develop at least a framework, at least some the early part of the literature review, and then they can put the research methods, collect data, and write if they are going empirical. And there are many journals that also accept conceptual framework, more theoretical papers. You don't need to have several million ideas. As long as you address one issue, and at the end of your paper you are giving a solid, concise message based on what other people have published, right? That is also good article. Not necessarily you need a survey data or interview data. So I encourage a student to write a paper on a topic of your interest. We understand it's a student paper, but did not make a rush just to submit to the journal. Before you submit, read, rewrite, share with your classmate, get their feedback, revise, submit to your professor, and then revise and still submit two more professors, and then only turn into your journals. And I bet, it will go through the review process this time. Many
Yeah.
students just happen to, as soon as the minute they finish writing, they are hurried to email to the editor of the journal, and you get rejected the day after tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the informal peer reviews or the reviews of your immediate peers and the faculty colleagues, etc., they do matter. And sometimes I think it's also important. The last point that you said, you do not immediately send it to the editor. In fact, stay away from the article for maybe a week or 10. And if you read it again yourself, you will see those flows which you could not see when you had just finished. You thought it was perfect, and you will be able to see those flows
Mhm.
yourself. And presenting to others is definitely a bigger project where you will get more probably better feedback as compared to what you can give to yourself.
Mhm.
In this journey, when you're saying you start with these things, can review papers help students? What is the practice there, or what is the best thing that you have learned about students or early career researchers writing review papers? Is it a good idea?
Peer reviewing probably the best way to look into, because you are reading somebody's paper and they provide you the rubric, the checklist, and you are evaluating somebody's ideas based on these criteria, saying okay, wrong or right. And this
Mhm.
gives you idea of how a final paper is written, how somebody writes the manuscript. It doesn't mean all article you review are the best article. These
Hmm.
article might be like yours article, right? And again, if you are reviewing an emerging journals that just started last year, they may not have a top quality articles by default. Some of them might be nice, so try, that would be nice. And again, I'm very happy to take enroll any of you who are listening this moment. I do have several projects. If you are just looking for the experience or certificate of reviewing manuscript, yes, I do have a training modules, and again, it's free of cost.
Yeah.
And believe it or not, we receive more than 1,000 articles in our projects, including books and journals. And yes, we need reviewers.
Uh, Continuing with this part, when we need reviewers, and you said you receive more than 1,000 articles. Usually, the journals, the top end journals, will publish very few articles every quarter. That's the most frequent that most of the journals have. So, should that also be a criteria, that how many articles does this journal publish every year? Does that make sense to choose that as a criteria? Uh, in terms of calculating the chance of your article getting selected or published, and along with the time it takes to
Mhm.
get to publication.
Um, there are two ideas behind selection of the number of articles included in each volume.
Mhm.
Some, I would say, fairly, they choose somewhere from 10 to 15 article in each volume. If they receive enough manuscript. Believe it or not, some journals do not receive more than 25 or 30 articles per year. Some
Wow.
journals, because there are too many. But those who are on the rise, yes, I would say on average, they receive from 500 to 1,000 articles per year. And they publish, 4 times to seven times. And there are two criteria to select how many. One, how much total expenses involved in the production phase. For example, the cost for the copy editing and the DOI and other expenses, it may be cost expensive if you have more than 15. And
Mhm.
also, many commercial journals, they have to print the hard copies and make a book. You cannot make a book with 2 articles or 3 articles unless you are solely online. And some journals, their articles are very, very long. One individual article could be 30 pages. And if you publish 6 articles, it's gonna be 180 or 50 pages, right? It's already big volume.
Hmm.
So among all 8 journals that we have, we choose somewhere from 15 to 20 articles per volume. One time I used to put 28 articles per volume, 28, and that would make
Wow.
600 pages per volume. 600 pages.
Wow.
Yes,
So,
even,
so,
even my book. Okay, I have a green screen here. You cannot see, but this is one volume.
hmm.
It's like a book.
Yes.
It's like a book here. So depending on the journal you choose. And then back to your question, sometime, oh, there is another requirement. The certain metrics, Scopus or citation machine also need certain number of the article per volume. So
Hmm.
less good. As long as somewhere 7 to 15, I think that's a reasonable number per volume.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. Uh, what role do conference presentations play here? Especially now that this online presentations have made participation less costly, especially the at least the travel and the stay cost have come down. What from a early career researcher's perspective, uh, how should you choose the conferences that you are presenting in, and from a PhD student who is getting into the domain, how do you look at the conferences? What kind of opportunities do they provide?
I believe, recently in the last 32 months or so, when we became in a pandemic mode, I think we got $1 million opportunity here because every day, you see somebody doing virtual conference. It's just a matter of fact, just request them and be a part of the conference. If not presenting, just listen it. You get the great ideas. I attended, I don't believe less than 100 conferences, sessions,
Wow.
quite a lot. And, pre-pandemic, I used to go just attend 1 or 2 conference, maybe 3 conference per year. It's a lot of cost, and then you are away from family and your classes or other thing. So I think the virtual conferences like this is the best thing. When I was a student, it's not a long time ago, my mentor, my professor used to tell me, don't go any conference. Instead of
Yes.
that, just stay and write, focus and write. You
Hmm.
get distracted, too much. Too much physical conference is a distraction.
Yeah,
Like
true.
this probably is good. And believe it or not, JGU has done this $1 million conference. If this was in person, imagine how many people we would need for logistic,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
probably, you may not have more time right now. Yes, it's still, you are running the show from your home or from your office. The one thing definitely we miss is the in-person interaction, which is the big thing. I'm not saying you should not go even a single one. Right now, it's a life and death situation. We are in such a, life and death scenario. So virtual conference is probably the best one. Hopefully, it will change the landscape of publication as well. And then we are very fortunate. No matter what, all conferences will have virtual component in next
True.
2 or 3 years, or in any future conferences, people will have virtual component.
The hybrid mode conferences.
Yes, it would not go away. People already loved it.
Yes, and maybe some of the people, some of the conferences will remain fully online because of
Mhm.
these reasons, the accessibility
Right,
reasons. That
right.
that that makes so much sense. So, in terms of a student starting with this writing of an article from a term paper, Does it make sense to go for a conference presentation first, or directly submit it to a journal?
Presentation is nice. At least they can get a chance to articulate their opinions, what they wrote, right? And somebody definitely in a conference will provide the feedback, some sort of feedback. So that would be nice, I believe. So
We-
yes, if there is a chance, opportunity, I think you should go. Okay, I think we have one more question here in the room.
Yes. So, how can young academics develop a good habit of academic writing?
Well, I'm still struggling how to write. So it's never-ending process, particularly for non-native English speaker. Even the native English speaker struggle writing. They know how to speak nicely. Some of them are very excellent writers, even non-native English speakers. Um, Unlike creative writings, I'm a fiction student. I read lots of fictions, and I struggle a lot even to write a paragraph. But when I changed my major and started all of my education major courses, I loved it, every single course. Probably
Mhm.
I was too tired, reading fictional characters, characters and stories, those things. So it's a technical writing, is a formula. There is a formula of developing paper. There are the standard element, always like in our algebra formula. We have an introduction, research question, literature review, method, data collection, analysis, discussion, references. So this is your format. We stick with this. So it's just developing your ideas, building the paragraphs, and it takes time, and you need the help of someone else other than you. No matter how good writer you are, still there will be million typos and errors. Some sentence would be awkward, challenging, so I would take advantage of my classmate, my mentors, my co-authors, everyone. You may laugh this. The first time when I wrote my article, I mean the essay for the class, many of my classmates were very busy, typical American classmates. Once the class was done, you can't see them again until next week when we come back for the class. So nobody was there, and there were few people from the church. For any international student, they used to come for the missionary message. I used to ask them, can you proofread it? And one time there was nobody to help me. I went to library. I asked the front desk librarian just to read my paper and provide feedback.
That's
Yes.
great.
And
Yeah.
yeah, nowadays, many universities do have writing center. I think JGU might have a writing center. Please rely on them.
Yeah,
They
we
are
have.
people always. Take advantage. There are lots of resources around you. And there are several free software, even like Grammarly. At least it helps, in some areas, particularly the punctuation or the articles in those things. And many of us who speak Hindi or Nepali or South Asian languages, there are not lots of things that are in English. In Nepali, we don't have a preposition in English, those things it doesn't translate, for those
Directly.
right. So rely on those resources. Writing is a big long journey. It doesn't come over time, over the month or years. It's a never ending process.
Hmm. So, uh, a related question about when this question was about the habit of writing. What are the tools that you use for managing your writing or managing your research process? What are some of the must-have tools or must-use tools?
I think the number one is the passion. If you have a deep interest, if you are super crazy, it's like a playing guitar. If you love it, you never know you are playing guitar in the middle of the night. When I was a student, when there was a pressure, whenever extra minute I get, even in the middle of the night, I wake up and start writing. And once I start the project, it would bother me if I do not finish it. um, Sometime I used to finish one entire paper, you know within 24 hours.
Wow.
I did not care the quality itself. My goal was to finish the project and come back and revisit. It's not like those early days without computers or just with the typewriters. Now you can change any paragraph, move around. I need the skeletal. I need at least some muscles there, and then I can do the
Plug
other
and play.
crafts. Yes, or the
Yeah.
smithing.
Hmm, hmm.
So
But
that
but
it. Interest probably one. Other tools, yes, you need the computers, you need the database, some libraries. You have to download at least 10, 15 articles around that topic, and you have to spend more time on the reading as well, what other people have written on this. If 500 articles are written on the very topic you are interested, why do you need to write it? If it has not written from your perspective, if all the articles are about other countries, not the India or JJU or similar private university, I think you should do it. So we need the
but how do you manage those? Say you have downloaded 17 or 20 different articles, and you are some going to the very nitty gritties of, say, scholars. Sometimes it happens, and it has happened with me, that I have downloaded, printed all the articles, and then taken notes there. And then when I start to write or revisit these things after a month, I have to go through every single paper every single time, look at
uh,
my handwritten notes. So tools in those terms, how do you manage such a volume of research and your own writing? What are those technical tools which can
okay.
help?
Yes, I know people have been using latest technology there, but I use Microsoft Excel. I call it literature review matrix. It has some columns. The one column, the author name, in each article I do have a column that says, name of the article, research question, the theoretical framework, their findings, and their suggestion. So each article, when I read, I put some information in my Excel file. So after finishing 20 articles, you have a chart, and you can make a matrix, you can plot. Seven article out of 20 are talking exact the same thing, and their results go together. Other five articles are contradicting their findings, and I'm questioning their population. Some of them have a small sample, other them are not really talking about how they use the data. I'm more questioning the process.
Mm.
And that way you are already developing few paragraphs in your mind without writing, saying that, okay, this is the first paragraph should be about, while making a critic of those work. You are evaluating their work rather than just citing, because becoming a researcher is also consumer of the somebody's work, but do not become an easy consumer. Be more critical, give opinions if that match, if that aligns what is happening in your context. It may happen somewhere in England but not in India, right? This could be the case of teaching students with the $5 million grants with the hi-fi latest laptops and other things. And imagine those who are learning in those places without computers, still using chalk and duster, right? So I would be more critical consumer of previously published articles. So in order to get that idea, I think I need to have some visual representation of what people have said. So I would be doing lots of bubbles, categorization of the ideas, comparing and contrasting, while developing my paragraph. Again, it's
And
not
where,
an easy process.
and where do you put these paragraphs? Word is the final document where it goes, but there must be some a single place where you put all your thoughts, because several things would be working in pipeline, right?
Right. In early days, still in here in my room, I have roughly 25 printed folder, with all articles. I stopped doing that about 5 years ago, and the computer ended with 5 million folder. And then computers started crashing and changing too many computers. And recently I've been using Google Drive or the Dropbox, and you can put all of those highlighted readings, your metrics, your work in progress document. It's been for a while. I'm not using Microsoft Words either, because Google Doc itself has all the features, and going to back and forth is too much work. So work online, connect those, folders right there. And then next time when you want to go back, you can see it, you can share your students. And it's helping very much.
Yeah, I think to manage your documents itself is a huge task, and everybody needs to go through that grind. You need to find your own specific
Yeah.
ways.
And
Uh,
as a professor, yes, you get 5 million, articles and folders, too much.
Yes, and these days there are several softwares also, but again, with them, it depends on your usage, your kind of
Mm-hmm.
work, etc. Not everything that's available online is as useful as the producers of that software would want us to believe.
Right, right. You said the good, because see, early days when I was a student, I was trying to learn qualitative software, and Vivo Atlas TI. These are super expensive. Then we had SPSS, SAS, and then R, too many. So, and then now I ask question, you know if I'm not doing every day, even one software, as long as you know one particular software very well, it is sufficient. So nowadays, I'm doing most of my qualitative work manually, unless I have several documents to put together on the Atlas TI or NVivo. And SPS itself is good, and I'm not spending more time on R or SAS or any other software.
Mhm. There's another interesting question here. Uh,
Uh-huh.
do you think that most publishers rely too much on plagiarism check software? As a result, the majority of writers depend on paraphrasing software. So basically, a counter to plagiarism check, you end up paraphrasing. That's
Mhm.
a valid question.
Right. Here is the challenge for many publishers. Is still they are traditional. No matter what they say, no matter how much money they make from your ideas, selling your ideas, big time companies, they don't have. They might have software, but the people who operate the journal may not have time to check every single journals. So many of them might not be catching it. Um, However, recently, um, all journals are required to have the policy about plagiarism, so their website should tell you the consequence of article being plagiarized. In our 15 years of publication journey, while publishing many authors, we happen to catch two authors over the time. And there are some punishment, penalized the steps for them. They are required to use the software. In our case, yes, we do use software. The initial phase, yes, we copy and paste the paragraph, we just check by that. And then recently we started putting all articles on the into the software. And if there is anything more than 15% matching, that it goes by percentage. It's questionable, and we look into where are these matching. Are there in the quotation or citation, those things? And these software are real nice. It asks you the checklist. uh, it's around the plagiarism case without citation or with the quotation. It has several checklists. They do
Yes.
use it, but I believe all journals are not able to catch. It's a big industry, believe it or not. There are so many ghost writers who happen to write your essays. Again, many professors are in a real pressure to publish. It's and it's a real game.
Yeah.
Looks like there is a follow-up question. Are you going to read it?
Yes. The question is it a good idea to have citations in the introductions part of an article? And is it reasonable to have more citations more than reasonable, I would say, is it better if we have more citations in a paper? And let me extend this, the introduction part. Is it good idea to have citations in introduction and abstract? I've seen the confusion around
Mhm.
that also.
Right. In one of our flagship journal and the other, I am part of the team. There are few articles, they had a citation even in abstract. That's something bothers me. I really do not want authors or encourage them to put citation in abstract. Abstract should be your personal idea that summarize the outcome of the your article. Although there are guidelines, precise guideline of writing abstract and not more than 120 to 150 words. um
And still we do find citations,
yes,
at least
so
especially talking about that we've used this framework, and then in brackets you will find the framework
mhm,
by this author. So that's a
right.
good.
Right. But it's still for the framework. I recommend not to use introduction. It's fine. Introduction paragraph could be couple of paragraphs. And you can build on based on the evidence, or you may be giving some justification, rationale. So it's okay to have a few citation, but not over citation. Sometimes the author put so many dead people, dead people in a sense, people, published long time ago. Unless these are the classical work, do not overuse of the citation. And there is no magic number of references in a paper. But you can fill, not more than a page, depending on the volume. Let's say if you are publishing 7,000 words article, let's not have more than a one page or 1.5 page references. Too many is not good. Select a handful of quality articles around your topic and build the argument and give more critical justification. The other parameters or the criteria of including in-text or references could be your topic. If your topic is so much innovative, if not, there are too many articles in the field, and if you are the one pioneering it, and that applies to one or two or article that Mausami has published recently, those were so much true toward our Asian context. So in that case, yes, these are your primary ideas. You may not have enough work to cite, and more citation doesn't make your paper uh, best or go through the review process quickly.
uh, a related question, I think I have faced some of the comments on that in my papers, where I've cited someone and then the reviewer has asked me, "You've cited someone who has, which is not the key idea of that paper. Go back and cite the original one." So, would you want to say something about that? Because say this as cited in this article. So that we face a lot as students.
I recommend, and I have not used probably in more than one article. I would not prefer use as cited as Deepak Mohan or Mausami Mukherjee 2014. Yes, I would go with the original one. In case if you do not find original, just forget it. I would not bother myself to find the original one. So I would not go with the age cited, or I mean the secondary one.
Second
Again,
citation.
it's not that difficult to locate about 10 to 15 articles, the best one that you really need. Um, I see another question here. How to manage references? Any software? Um, Yes, there are few software really good. Microsoft Word generates really nice way. Believe it or not, no software is as powerful as Microsoft Word. It does have a lot of function. Recently, one of my publishing house asked me to prepare index, and there was a software company we paid money to do. And when I happen, used Microsoft Word, it produce your indexes the best in about 30 minutes. um In my personal case, I'm not using any software. Now I'm familiar with the APA manual, and I fix myself, probably the faster way. Um, Once you know how to, make the citations both in text and references, it is quick for you. Since we have been doing it every day, almost every day, in the class or in the writing. So doing manually prevents testing. In many databases nowadays, including ProQuest, Eric, others, there are some tabs. When you select, it produces all of them in a APA format or MLA or Chicago, and it needs just a minor tweak, just minor revisit. That's a lot of time saving. Open access also do have um, little click in tabs, and it gives you references in APA or citation manual you follow. That may be the way to start.
I think manual check is anyways required because sometimes the software, maybe because of the settings or because of some wrong information that it has auto uh, collated from the web when you download the PDF, there may be some mismatch. So you anyways need to do the manual check.
Right. And the one thing is the good journals or book publishing house, they have somebody. Once your article or chapter accepted, there are other people who will fix some of your grammars, citation, everything without any cost. And that's the positive side going with the high quality journals. They will give you proofread. They will send you queries to fix it. It doesn't mean you need to know 100% of every single thing you do. There are people.
Yes, and in terms of software, I think the usage also depends on your university. What
Mhm.
subscription do they have? So
Right.
that defines. Although in my experience, like uh, one for starters, I think all the software, say Zotero or Mendeley, they allow you to have the free version. The free version, or at least the trial version, that gives you an idea that okay, these are the features, and you can test that, and it is also not very costly. So I used to use Zotero, which was 1200 rupees a year, which basically means in Indian currency I was paying 100 rupees per month, which is not much to manage my references. Okay. Yeah, Moshmi is saying that universities may not have subscription to these softwares in case of countries like India. That's where I think even for softwares that I personally purchased 1200 rupees a year, 100 rupees a month. So that kind of money is not too much. But yeah, if you're using Atlas TI, etc., to do your analysis, that's like an individual subscription is in 20, 30,000 that you cannot afford. That may be.
Here is probably a way of doing it. I strongly recommend not to purchase any software. There is a way you can do manually.
Mhm.
Imagine our scholars, our forefathers. How did they do? These software are commercial products. They came just 10 years ago, 15 years ago. DOI is another big commercial industry. It costs 10,000, not 10,000, it costs $1,000 per year for a journal. Imagine those 10, 20 years ago, there was no thing as such DOI, and they published the best of the best. So anything that you see nowadays is somebody's business.
True, true.
And then the question comes, how do I take advantage of this software? Look into the trial version. If you really like it, why don't you partner with another professor at another university, collaborate with the work, either ask a sort of subscription of the software, or ask that person to run the data for you. So do collaboration, and then again, as I said, Microsoft Word, it has the best input there to generate your references. So instead of paying $1,200, you don't use it every day again. The other question comes about the subscription. Yes, it's needed for the databases because you need to download those articles. Um, In that particular case, probably we should argue the need without dean or provost BCs to have, at least one or two subscription that help you to download these articles. In early days, my trick was simple. If you really like some article somewhere else, why don't you email the author saying, Professor Deepak, I'm a big fan of your article. I happen to read the abstract this thing. I really need a copy of this. Would you email me a PDF? Professor Deepak would be more than happy. He would be super excited. He will be he will invite you for the coffee and tea if nearby. He would be that much happy to share the PDF.
Sure.
And you
That's
connect the author, you got the ideas, you got the, and then you can run, your papers later on. Professor Deepak, you are the one who gave me the article. I happen to finish this. Would you mind reading it, providing your feedback? I know Deepak is busy. At least he will read one paragraph, and you are lucky.
yeah, yeah. All right. I think we have been able to cover all the questions that were there, and we are at the fag end of the session. Any other last questions? Mm,
Thank you so much for having me. I truly appreciate the opportunity and connect with um, scholars who are listening us around the globe, and those who will be watching us the recorded sessions later on. Please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me anywhere, including on the public forums and Google's everywhere. The articles and emails are not difficult to find it. It's krishna.bista@gmail.com or morgan.edu. You can find on the Star Scholars or some of the book project. You might be receiving emails from Star Scholars almost every week, or at least a couple of times a year during these conferences. So I am there. You can reach out to me or Dr. Chris Glass or Dr. Uttam Ganali or our own Dr. Mukherjee or Deepak G here. So please, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of the conference and good day. Look forward to seeing you again on another platform. Thank you.
thank you, Dr. Vista. With this, I hope the participants will utilize the learnings from this session, and they will be able to understand this whole field of research and academic writing much better as opposed to whatever they knew before the session. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Dr. Vista.
You're welcome.
Shubham?